Welcome to A Slice with Dice, where education meets inspiration and leadership meets real life. I'm Corey Alderdice, Executive Director of the Arkansas School for Mathematics, Sciences, and the Arts. With 2 decades in school leadership, I'll share what I've learned from walking the tightrope between policy and practice, especially when it comes to doing right by gifted students and their futures. Ready to dive in? Here's this week's Slice. To kick off this new season, I want to talk about something that's been on my mind for quite a while. And it might resonate with those of you who've led or even observed leadership in challenging roles. It's this idea of leadership as a declining balance. Think about it for a second. When someone steps into a leadership role, whether as a school principal, university president, or even a corporate CEO, they begin their tenure with a certain amount of goodwill. Imagine this as a bank account filled with trust, optimism, and support from colleagues, community members, and stakeholders. Now, early on, that balance often feels pretty healthy. People are hopeful. They're eager to see positive changes and tend to give new leaders the benefit of the doubt. But as we know, leadership is rarely straightforward. Eventually, leaders face difficult decisions, some popular, some definitely not. And here's where things get tricky. Every tough call a leader makes tends to draw down from that initial balance. Sure, making popular or clearly beneficial decisions might put some small deposits back into the account, but it's rarely enough to fully replenish what's lost from the more contentious choices. Those challenging moments like making necessary but unpopular budget cuts, implementing controversial new policies, or navigating sensitive personnel decisions. Those are the things that can drain the account more quickly and deeply than you'd expect. And here's one of the hard truths. Over time, no matter how many successes or achievements leaders rack up, the withdrawals from their balance often outweigh the deposits. In fact, I've observed that achievements usually don't restore trust or goodwill to the same extent that controversial decisions take it away. Now, this doesn't mean that leaders are inevitably doomed to fail or burn out, but it does mean that leadership requires constant, careful attention to how you manage your capital. There are several ways to approach this practically. First, being incredibly intentional about choosing your battles. Not every issue requires the full investment of your leadership capital. Ask yourself regularly, is this issue truly aligned with our core mission? Will this decision create meaningful change, or am I spending too much capital on something peripheral? Second, communication matters immensely. Leaders who proactively, clearly, and consistently communicate the why behind tough decisions to the extent that they are able slow the drain on their political and social capital. Transparency doesn't erase negativity, but it often softens its impact, preserving more of your balance for future challenges. Wise leaders also build and nurture coalitions. When stakeholders, teachers, staff, influential community members stand alongside you publicly in support of tough decisions, they help share the burden. That spreads out the withdrawal from your personal balance and helps you maintain your credibility longer. Timing and pacing also matter a great deal. Trying to push through too much change too quickly can accelerate the depletion of goodwill. Savvy leaders recognize that pacing significant changes strategically mixed with easier wins allows them to keep their balance stronger for longer periods. But perhaps the toughest implication of this concept is knowing when it's time to pass the baton. Recognizing when your balance is running too low to continue effectively is an act of genuine, selfless leadership. Preparing your organization for fresh leadership ensures continued progress and a healthier, renewed balance of trust and goodwill. To put this in perspective, average tenure lengths in key leadership roles underscore this reality. High school principals typically stay about 4 years, while superintendents average around 6. University presidents' tenures have dropped from more than 8 years down to under 6 over the past 2 decades. And corporate CEOs now average fewer than 5 years in their roles. I think these numbers tell us something important. Leadership, especially effective leadership, is challenging, draining work. And knowing when you've made your best contribution is itself a significant act of leadership. So is viewing leadership as a declining balance too negative or cynical? Well, not really. It's honest. It's realistic and ultimately empowering. When leaders recognize the finite nature of their goodwill, trust, and political capital, they become more intentional, thoughtful, and effective. They make smarter decisions, they communicate better, they cultivate deeper relationships. And perhaps most importantly, they strive to make meaningful change more sustainably. But here's the hopeful takeaway. Every leader starts with the incredible opportunity to make a difference, to impact lives positively, and to set the stage for future success. While leadership does draw down your balance, it also leaves behind a legacy of growth, strength, and inspiration that hopefully outlasts any single tenure, because these things are temporary stewardships at their core. And that's the real measure of successful leadership. Not simply how long your balance lasts, but how meaningfully it's invested. A Slice with Dice is a production of Aldercube. Thanks for making time to reflect with me. If you're finding value in these episodes, I hope you'll subscribe and help spread the word. Until next week, lead boldly, listen closely, and keep pushing forward. I'll see you then.